listeners. Welcome to the Lone Screenplay Nominee podcast, where we talk about films that were solely nominated for an Oscar in the writing categories. I'm your host, Matthew Anderson, and today we have from the HannahCast YouTube channel podcast, Christian Hannah, on the show. Welcome to my podcast. How you doing today, Christian?
I'm doing quite well.
Right. Awesome. I can't remember for the life of me how I had discovered your channel, or maybe it was just through passing, but I know it was at least maybe it might have been the start of last year that I started noticing your channel. One of my questions I want to ask, which I typically ask my guest, is what exactly is, like, what was the origin for the HannahCast YouTube channel itself? Like, was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it something that you just thought one day, like, oh yeah, let's do this kind of thing? Would you care to explain what it is you do on your own YouTube channel?
All right, yeah, I'll go through like the history of it, because it's actually kind of changed over many years. Like ever since I discovered, I know it's, and this is gonna be going back a bit to like the early 2010s, but like ever since I saw like Fred, I was like, I want to do YouTube. And so like I've been trying, and back then it wasn't the HannahCast. Like at first it was just like a generic, Christian Hannah, a few numbers, because initially I started off doing this thing called Speechless Steve, which was just like this silent character with a fake mustache, where I did like weird weird jokes where it's like I don't even know what I was trying to do. Like it's like I would like mess with because YouTube had like these features like, oh, you can make it look neon. So I was like, oh, well, a Speechless Steve is in Tron, or it looks like a cartoon. So like, Speechless Steve is in a cartoon. But I eventually deleted those videos. I showed privated them because I honestly think that those could have been funny to look back on. But like then I tried doing like this sketch called Handicapped, where I had like a paper hand where after it got flattened by a car, and so it was just a bunch of that. But actually not even a bunch of that. That was like the only thing I kind of had. And then later on in like 2014, I started watching movie reviews from like Jeremy Jahns and Chris Duckman. I don't really watch Jeremy Jahns anymore, but I started, I want to try to do that because I like movies and maybe I could try this. And so then I had Christian's reviews, and so yeah, I had that where I just like reviewed movies and stuff, and I was actually not bad at it even back then. Like, if I'm being honest, I probably stuttered a lot less back then than I do now. But and then eventually I changed it to Christian's reviews. But then I started realizing people kept looking at my videos and going, "Why are you reviewing Boo 2: A Medea Halloween and not mentioning Jesus?" And then I could start, because Christian's reviews, I'm like, damn it, people think this is a religious channel. And so eventually I started figuring out what to do, like what do I do, and so I started this thing called the HannahCast, like a podcast, because that'd be kind of cool, even though initially the podcast wasn't really all that interesting, because it's like I would just talk about random stuff, and it's just like, I guess I don't really know what to do, but I like the name, the HannahCast, so I eventually just made that my channel name, so it's not just a podcast thing, it's just the HannahCast is my brand, and inevitably people started getting confused over that as well, because people think I'm a girl because Hannah, and I'm like, nope, that's my last name, and I can't call it the Christian Cast, because again, that sounds like a religious thing, and so I can't win with my name, but still, I like the HannahCast, it sounds nice, and then funny enough, I've always done like Oscar reactions, or at least like Oscar nomination reactions, because I've always found those to be interesting. But it wasn't until I watched, and I'm very sure you've watched them, the Oscar Expert and Brother Bro, like I watched their channel and I was like, oh my god, they actually make Oscar content that's like really funny, really entertaining. The edits are actually kind of crazy. I'm a little bit jealous because I can't do the camera tracking like they can. But so starting in 2022, I got much deeper into it, mainly with, trying to predict the Oscars and other award shows and stuff. And suddenly that made my channel blow up. Although I just want you to know that wasn't single-handedly what made my channel blow up, because around like the end of 2022, I released a video called "Welcome to Game Theory," which is a parody of "Welcome to the Internet" by Bo Burnham, and that video and song made my channel blew up, and it even caught Matt Pat's attention. Like, he talked about it on GT Live. I was like, oh my god. And so that's what crossed me over 1,000 subscribers, monetization on my channel. And I was like, all right, cool, but I don't know how to keep this going. And I was gonna do more parody songs, but then I lost my previous job due to what's the word I'm looking for? They're basic mass layoffs and stuff, and so man, so I can't do that for because I was hiring people to actually do actually sing and make the songs and stuff while I wrote the lyrics. So. And so then we go back to the Oscar expert and watching, oh wow, Oscar reaction content could actually be fun. And so I started doing that with the, Everything Everywhere Fableman's All Quiet year. And then ever since then, I just kind of been going on and I've started seeing more consistent success and, with the channel, more views as the months go by. I even did a collab with Brother Bro and Film Drunk, which was really cool. And yeah, I'm now neck deep into into Oscar predictions, and I'm really glad I'm at least in terms of where I am within a YouTube community and stuff like that. I'm glad to be where I am right now in that atmosphere. Maybe not so much in real life, but here.
Yeah, it sounds like much like the director of the film we're going to talk about shortly. It seems like you're a man with oh god, what the hell is the term I'm thinking of?
Ambition.
Well, yes, ambition. But I was more actually pointing towards a guy full of tricks. You got many things up your sleeves, like Oscar predictions, the parody stuff. And yeah, it seems like, I gotta say, I'm really, I was quite impressed with some of the Oscar prediction videos you've done, even if I, at times, may be like, no, I think this, this certain, much like other Oscar predictors I've talked with and interacted with, even within my own circles. I'm like, I don't know if that person, that said film is going to be that higher into predictions or has a chance at winning and so on and so forth. But I've been wrong before many times, especially this last year, which, so anyways, but no, it's great to have you on the show, and at least great for telling my audience here, which is pretty small in terms of what exactly it is you do on the HannahCast YouTube channel. So yeah, so like I said, it's great to have you on. The other question I did want to get into before we jump right into our movie discussion, because there's a lot we could talk about with this movie. And I mean a lot, folks, that we may not even get through, even in terms of the actual movie that the film is based upon. But the other question I did want to ask, and I usually ask this for all my guests that come on here, it's always tough to find, always tough to ask the audience, the guests coming on to the show, hey, what's your favorite film? Because there's literally thousands of films you could pick out and be like, oh yeah, that's my favorite film. Oh yeah, now it's changed after we recorded the episode. So I just want to ask, what is your favorite genre of film you love to watch?
Well, ironically enough, answering the question of my favorite film is easier than my favorite genre of film, because I don't really view genre, when it comes to genres of film, I don't usually think of oh, I love this genre more than this, because I've seen great films from, for example, I've seen great romance movies, with Her and I'm trying to think, even to some extent Deadpool and stuff like that. But then I've seen also bad romances like 50 Shades of Grey and stuff like that. And so it's like, or hell, another great example of a great love story. You know, you could also go to Moonlight and what was it called? Love, Simon.
Okay.
But when it comes to genres, that's kind of harder for me to answer, because it's like I don't really view genres in like that kind of a box, because like it's literally like it's a wild card. Anything could happen.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
But I would say my favorite film, like consistently throughout my life, has been Jurassic Park. Like perfect example of like a movie that had not only groundbreaking visual effects like for its time, but also, you know, the characters are a lot like how do I explain? It's like they're way better than like a movie like that back in the 90s needed to be, because you could literally just put the CG dinosaurs on screen and people would have already gone to see it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they took so much care and time into making sure these characters are likable, that you want to see them make it through this, and you know they could also be funny without being cringe, or if a character is being cringe, it's like that's part of the joke. And also even like characters like John Hammond, where like he could have so easily been like a money hungry bad guy who didn't see any kind of morality, and it's like, no, he does have a moral line that he won't cross. Like, you know, like he had to get there, but it's like he did have that conscience and put the safety of people, mainly his grandchildren, before his ambition. And I think it's just a fantastic film. Meanwhile, you look at the rest of my list of my favorite movies, like that's where it's all not in terms of like where I'd place them, but more so it's like, you don't, like, if you were to look at a list of my favorite movies, you would not be able to guess what kind of movies I'm into, because you could have Jurassic Park, you'll have The Dark Knight, but you'll also have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and yes, I mean the Tim Burton one. You'll have the Tigger movie, The Lion King, Pan's Labyrinth, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Truman Show, The West Side Story, Steven Spielberg's version. It's literally a wild card. So it's people, like, you could, like, with some people you could probably guess what kind of person they are based on the movies that they have in their favorites. You would not be able to tell what kind of person I am through my favorite movies, because it's like literally anything could be it. Like all of those are in there, and it's like a complete hodgepodge of just like none of them are similar at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, even looking through, if you don't mind me bringing this up as well, looking through your letterbox and looking at the films you've given like 10 out of 10s to, I should say, it's a lot. Like it's definitely, you know, touching upon children's films, biopics, you know, even horror films at times, comic book movies, fantasies, and, you know, an animated kids movie like The Lion King. And even something as old as from the 60s with 12 Angry Men, and even
that's like one of the best. That's one of the best.
That's 12 Angry
movies
Men.
ever.
I'm sorry, that's from the 50s. Psycho, 1960.
Oh yeah, Psycho. I love Psycho.
Speaking of which, yeah, I think I already said this on another episode when we covered. I think it was Hiroshima Mon Amour. Because this episode will probably be dropping on November 1st, I believe, or the day after Halloween, but. Watch Psycho. You got to watch that, because I saw that like a couple years ago during the pandemic, and it's fantastic. Yeah,
Psycho's one of those movies where I was like, I think I also watched it during the pandemic, and I was like, all right, Hitchcock, you know, everyone says it's a masterpiece, you know, prove to me that it's because I was kind of doubting it, because, you know, whatever, and then I watched it, it's like, oh my god, this is really well written, oh Jesus, and it's like, the way it just kind of builds its tension, and the one scare that actually did catch me off guard was like that overhead shot, and where he's just kind of walking, that's out of nowhere, someone pops up. It's like, Jesus, and this is an overhead shot, and that jump scared me. It's like, that was really, really well done. And then, funny enough, I also saw the Gus Van Sant one. I'm like, this doesn't really work in color. It doesn't. No.
Yeah, it's just there are things better left dead than just the one thing I'm actually surprised you didn't bring up about this with Jurassic Park. Great sound work too. Like it's.
Oh my god.
Like, I'm pretty sure for the time, the sound work in terms of like what they used to mix in the dialogue and the music cues and the sound effects was all like that was kind of new technology they did at the time. And I don't know if you got a chance to see this because I know they did on the cinema day or whatever it was, like 2023, where they had Jurassic Park playing for like a weekend or whatever at select theaters. But even before that, it was like I think in 2021, that summer of 2021, I went to the Mahoning Drive-In. Quick story, and then we'll start a film discussion. I swear to God. So hang on.
Hey, you're fine. You're fine.
You know. No, I'm just talking to our audience at all.
Oh,
there's probably
be
gonna be
patient,
some
audience.
Like, yeah, it's like they're very much like, come on, get to the point. Let's get to the movie. But I remember seeing. I went to the Mahoning Drive-In experience back in like 2021, the summer of that year, and I remembered that they were gonna show, I think, one of the Man with No Name trilogy movies there. And they canceled it at the last minute because they didn't have the print in time. So they said, so we're going to offer you guys a free screening of Jurassic Park in 35 millimeter print. And when they did that, I was watching it and I'm like, I have to admit, I don't know if this is like the new sound design mix that they got from the newer Blu-rays that we've been getting over the years with like the 4K version, the 3D Blu-ray they did because they did a remaster on the sound work there. Or if it's just that's how damn good the sound quality was even back in 1993. Because it was like almost crisp and clear, the dialogue and the music cues, like in terms of how the sound was being projected onto the 35 millimeter prints. And these aren't just like 35 millimeter prints. They're like, oh yeah, we made like a home movie that we just converted onto 35 millimeter prints. Like, no, they actually went out of their ways to other exhibitors, even around the world, I'm pretty sure, to grab these various reels that they could collect and make it to where, all right, this is feasible enough to make a 35 millimeter screening if we wanted to for the Mahoning Drive-In experience. But yeah, I haven't been there ever since then, but it's a great experience. I've been out there even years ago when they did the first two Indiana Jones movies, and it's a fun experience that if you ever get a chance to visit Pennsylvania and you happen to drive by the Mahoning Drive-In and check to see what their scheduled films are. I know they play in like the spring all the way to like fall, I think. So they might be closed by now. I don't know. I never got a chance to look recently, but great set of films they got there. A lot of retro films, even stuff from like the 50s and 60s as well. They cover too. So yeah, it's a fun experience. So anyways, enough about that. You're not here for us talking about random movies. You're here to talk about the movie, which is not just the room, but the Disaster Artist. Thank you, Christian.
Yeah.
So as usual, so we're here to talk about the 2017 James Franco directed movie. This won't be a beat-by-beat bulletin presentation like you hear on other channels, but we will be discussing major spoilers for our talk. If you haven't seen the movie yet and want to hear our full thoughts on it, watch the film first and then come back to hear us talk about it. Also, too, if you haven't gotten a chance either, maybe I would recommend this as like if you're into this kind of thing, like if you're into watching bad movies with a full group and want to get like, pissed drunk, also watch The Room. I highly recommend it just because or if you don't want to watch The Room, at least watch like Nostalgia Critic's review of it so you know the bulletin points of what the story is and how bad the acting is and such. But it's hilarious. Like you really got to see just how bad this movie can be at times. The Room, of course.
I actually saw like back in 2017 when they were like promoting the Disaster Artist, they actually did re-release The Room in theaters, and me and some friends went to go see it, and it was the exact thing you would expect. Like everyone was like responding to what was going on screen. Everyone was like quoting it, and it was really, really like the movie. Like, do you want to discuss a little bit about The Room before we dive into the Disaster Artist?
We will, right after I give the production notes on the film from what I found, and then we'll get right into and then we'll start getting into The Room. So The Disaster Artist is based on the nonfiction book The Disaster Artist: My Life Inside the Room, the greatest bad movie ever made, written by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell. In the book, it detailed the troubled development and production of Tommy Wiseau's The Room, which came out in 2003, alongside Greg's struggle as a young actor and his relationship with Tommy. Writers Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, who had done The Fault in Our Stars, 500 Days of Summer, I think The Spectacular Now, they also did too at the time. were hired to come on board to tell a version of the story, not necessarily about whether or not the film would be good or bad, but rather tell the story of whether or not Tommy and Greg's friendship would could survive while making the movie. And with Seth Rogen's production company, Point Grey Pictures, behind it, as they acquired the book and the film rights to the Disaster Artist, James Franco and Dave Franco were announced as Tommy and Greg for the film, respectively. As for filming itself, it had started December 8th of 2015 and ended in January 28th, 2016. The film had its premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival 2017, but it was a work in progress cut. Regardless, it received a standing ovation at the event. And when I looked into this, I'm like, well, really? All right, let me look more into this. And I'm like, yeah, it did. And so the interesting thing about it, though, at this event was that when it was screened at South by Southwest, it didn't have a U.S. distributor yet. It had Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema had bought the international rights to the film, but they never were. No one else bought the U.S. distribution rights, and it wasn't until May of that year that A24 picked it up and set the film for a limited release on December 1st, and then expanding into nationwide theaters on December 8th. So the Disaster Artist would be also screened at the Toronto International Film Festival that year as the final cut of the film, where it was the runner-up film for Midnight Madness Prize. I can't remember who had won the actual Midnight Madness Prize. I'll look more into it in just a moment. And also the film was screened at the American Film Institute Festival as well, which I think is also pretty interesting. As far, in terms of like other major festivals that had gone through, there are other festivals that went through, but they're not nearly as big as, like, again, South by Southwest, TIFF, or AFI. But I digress. As far as other awards go for the film, James Franco himself won the Gotham Award for Best Actor. He won the Critics' Choice Award for Actor in a Comedy Film, and the Golden Globe for Lead Actor Comedy Musical. And he was also nominated at the Critics' Choice and Screen Actors Guild for Lead Actor, but lost both to Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour. We'll get more into some of these other films I'm going to name drop in just a minute. Well, we'll get to those after a film discussion, but anyways. The screenplay written by Scott and Michael did get nominations at Critics' Choice, USC Scripter Awards, and the Writers Guild of America, but lost the Adapted Screenplay Prize to Call Me By Your Name. Ever since the success of the film, Seth Rogen hasn't worked with James Franco on any project since 2018, when James Franco was accused of sexual misconduct by 5 women. So we'll also we'll try to maybe dive into that a little bit more a little bit later. But like I said, guys, there is so much in here that we could cover that it would take us like more than an hour, but I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of it. And before I get into the question of, how did you discover this movie and so on, I'll just give a quick log line, which essentially kind of, speaks for itself, but I might as well just go with it because that's what the structure of the podcast is at this point. So the log line of the film is when an aspiring actor, Greg Sestero, meets the weird and mysterious Tommy Wiseau in an acting class, they form a unique friendship and travel to Hollywood to make their dreams come true, which ends up becoming what we see here of the creation of The Room. Now, since I've already gone on that whole spiel, I have to ask, so that was your first time you had ever seen The Room was during its, re-release, right before The Disaster Artist came out. Is that true?
I think, in terms of, fully watching the movie, yes. But I had seen, the Nostalgia Critic review, and I think Fanboy Flicks reviewed it, Chris Duckman's review. I watched a lot of reviews of The Room before I had finally watched the film, but I think that, watching it with a crowd in the theater was the first time I watched the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a chance. So my brother and I, we saw. By the way, we should also point out the marketing on the Disaster Artist was brilliant because the teaser trailer really established what kind of movie you were in for and not just what the film was going to be about, but all in terms of the details themselves, but also even talk about what is this Room movie? Why does this guy have such terrible lines and he's not doing a good job, played by James Franco? But what is this about? And if anything, it makes the audience more curious as to okay, I gotta see what's the room about? For those who haven't heard or seen of the movie, it was a great example of having that. I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
Oh, hi,
Oh,
Mark.
hi, Mark. Yeah, yeah. No, I thought that was like a great way to establish, what the film was, and then even get that trailer we got, which I swear to God, my brother Nathan and I,
funny.
we saw the movie in front of we saw the trailer in front of like Lady Bird, I think 3 billboards, definitely in front of Blade Runner 2049. And every time we saw that trailer, we were always cackling our asses off like it was the first time we'd ever seen it.
Like the one where he's like trying to get the line right, and at one point, are you talking about that one?
Well, that one, but I was referring to the other trailer where they show like oh God, what was it? I'll send you the other trailer to it, but it was essentially like Greg Sestero asking, Tommy, like, how do you do it? Like, I don't, you don't worry about all the people that you get up on stage. What if you're not, whatever. And he was like, it's like, yeah, but you, man, you're so brave. And he's like, how do you do it? It's like, I don't care. I do it. And then it just shows like a cut of him in the acting class, like, like we just died of laughter.
For me, like the trailer that made me really laugh was that teaser where he keeps trying to get that line right, because like the growing frustration of her, and he's like, "I hit her." It's like, "No, do you want to change the line?" It's like the growing frustration of how everything keeps going, and then the one time he gets it right, which is still really really bad, is whenever he goes, "We did it! We finally got it!" It's like at night, everyone's cheering, just getting ready to go home. That's the one that's the trailer that always stuck with me, and that always for me that was that's the movie for me. It's like that's kind of the crux of the movie, just watching chaos unfold, and what you got isn't great or good at all, but it's the best we got right now. So like I just really love that first teaser.
Yeah, no, it's a great teaser, and like I said, it's the other trailer that, again, I'll show you off air, but it's a really, I thought that was also a pretty good trailer. So yeah, so I have to ask, this is now, I assume, your second time you've seen the movie since it came out theatrically?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen it since theater, so I want to ask first to you, like, does your opinion on the film change from when you first saw it in theaters? Is it about the same? Did you like it a bit more this time around on your rewatch?
I think back then I had it as like my number 2 movie of the year.
Oh, wow.
I believe it was number 2. And I think it would still be in my top 10, although there is one aspect of the film that's gone a little bit down for me, but not that where basically it would just take it from like a 10 to a 9. But I still think overall the Disaster Artist still very much holds up, especially its screenplay. Like I don't have any qualms about its writing. Like if you do want me to get into a little bit, like I don't know how exactly you want this to be structured, but
We'll definitely talk about the screenplay. We'll definitely talk about some of the, because I have notes in regards to the movie itself in terms of like what I liked, even just like the fact that they, Scott and Michael were willing to be like, because I think the way they wrote the script, if I'm not mistaken, was like one of them had seen The Room, and the other one asked the other like, "Hey, should I also watch The Room too?" He's like, "No, don't watch The Room, because then what makes this an interesting movie for me at least." And this is also ties into why they didn't go with that concept of like, oh yeah, let's both watch The Room, because by having both writers be that familiarized with The Room and the making of what the film was about, or at least going through the book and, also using the book as well. But by having one of them only see The Room and the other not, it allows the general audience member to be like, oh yeah, I could throw this on, not really know much about The Room itself, and still get attached to the characters. They're not superficial, or they're not super focused and laser, or, they're like, oh, we got to focus on like all these like references. We got to figure out, oh yeah, how do you get the bottle in his hand? You're like, there's an origin there. Like other biopics would tend to do, where it's like, we got to figure out and, crowbar in how we get, like Freddie Mercury to have his mic to be the way it is, or have like, I don't know why NWA, created Straight Outta Compton, things like that. But it's enough to where you're able to get sucked into the characters and you like these characters to where when we do get to these moments, they're not as forced or they're not as forceful as other biopics would be. They're a bit more sincere, and at least you could buy them coming from a place of like, oh, like we understand who these characters are, we like them, we want to make sure that this is good, even though we know it's a really bad movie that they end up making. But at the barest minimum, it's like Ed Wood, where it's like it doesn't matter that the end product is shit. What matters is they at least had a lot of heart and ambition, and they really put their hearts. It wasn't just a cash grab moneymaker they were making. They wanted to make something that they felt was genuine. And that's something that I really appreciated about the writers, Scott and Michael, that they did. And one thing I still appreciate, even rewatching this years later, I will say for me, though, as much as I do like the movie overall, and I think it is really, really good for what it is, especially for this being directed by Franco, which he had done like over 20 movies, and most of them are kind of crap, and there's a reason why we don't mention them, honestly, because they're not really, they're very different, artists. It's a very different kind of movie that he's making with those other films. But with this one, I feel like, for me at least, one thing's for sure is that once you know the impact of how much of the room is put into the film, because that was something I remembered. My brother and I, we were cackling our asses off like whenever they did like a line from the movie, like when Greg Sestero is reading the draft of The Room, and he's reading out all these lines in Tommy Wiseau's head, and he's like, "In a few minutes, bitch," or "Anything for my princess," and it's like all these things. It's like we're laughing hysterically because like, oh my god, they actually included that line. But nowadays, I'm like, with this film, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to notice a lot more in it that I did notice the first time. Like, for one, my brain when I'm watching movies is a lot different than it was back in 2017. Like, I was still in community college acting. But I didn't have these, like, technical prowesses of, like, oh, like, there's a way that you could directing-wise, there's a way that you could achieve some of these moments a bit better. Or even just in terms of how it's, again, like with a much more visionary director behind it, I feel like it could have been a little bit more interesting visually, at least. But as is, it's still an entertaining movie, and I still think everyone is doing a good job. You're right, though. I have no major qualms with the script, even though it does have to make changes for the better, or at least do it in a way to where it's like we kind of have to make these changes because there's no way we can cover all the ground that is covered in Greg Sestero's book. Like, obviously, the premiere is completely different in terms of the reaction that we got from the movie, and that was created because we wanted to make a happy ending and at least do it to where it's like we don't want to end the film on such a downer note. Like, we want to have something to where because the whole time you're trying to make the audience feel like we care about these characters from the moment that the movie starts. Like, instantly we like these characters, and we see how Greg and Tommy would be sort of best friends with each other because one has something that the other doesn't. Greg is this, he may seem like a Hollywood hotshot, or be like, oh yeah, he's this big movie star, but deep down he's really not. He's in that insecure shell. Like, he's not really ready to pop out and really be who he could become. Whereas Tommy, he's really like, he's out there, he's, doing whatever it takes. And that opening sequence is fucking hilarious. Like, that moment, even when I don't know about you, Christian, but when I saw that opening sequence, I thought James Franco's going to win the Golden Globe. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Like, he's going to win the Golden Globe for this performance just by that opening scene where we see Greg, muck up his dialogue scene with his scene partner. And then, the teacher says, all right, who else would like to, take the world by storm, or whatever she says. And then you see Tommy go, I go. And then he goes down onto the comes out of the bleachers and comes down into the little stage area where we see all these props, and then he grabs the chair. And we never see his face until he starts, quoting, Streetcar Named Desire, when all he just says is Stella. He just like throws the chair around. He starts climbing the side of the building. It's like, it's like got like King Kong, climbing the Empire State Building. And it was like the funniest bit. Even watching it yesterday, I still thought it was like one of the funniest moments of the movie. And then when it ended, that scene ended. I immediately remember I remember at the time, and even now rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, that's why you won the Golden Globe because it's like, and Franco's giving a really good performance in the movie. But yeah, no, but he is doing a good job with that. Like, you know, it's pretty solid with what he's doing. But yeah, there's other things that we could talk about. But I've already spoken a lot so far, so I'm gonna give you the floor a bit more than me. So go ahead with any other initial thoughts you have about the movie.
Like, I will say, you mentioned James Franco. That's ironically the one part that actually did go a bit down for me. And here's why. And it's like, I don't, like, and to be fair, like, trying to play Tommy Wiseau is a very difficult task. Because, like, he's such a strange person. And his acting, like, Tommy Wiseau's acting is so bad, I don't think anyone can really replicate it. But the thing is, for me, with James Franco, and again, it's hard for me to say, like, who could have really done it better, because, again, it's such a difficult role to play, but it's like, I could sort of see the acting decisions going on in his head, whereas with, you know, Tommy Wiseau, he's like a very random person, and it's like, nothing he does makes any sense, nothing he says makes any sense, but
he wrote The Room, which makes no sense whatsoever as to why he thinks these characters would talk the way they do.
Yeah, it's like, the way he's written in the movie, I could see Tommy Wiseau doing all of that. But especially around the beginning, he does get better near the end, but admittedly, like, the way James Franco plays him, he plays it in a way where it's like, it doesn't feel as spontaneous or random like how Tommy Wiseau is. Like, it does feel like he has to go scene by scene, like, do this, do that. And again, it's with other, I don't even know if I'm even describing it right, but it's like with other performances, like, yeah, this kind of acting makes a lot more sense because you're trying to get the point across in the story. But with Tommy Wiseau, like I said, he's just a very random person that just does and says whatever in his weird little way. And for hell, we still don't know what country he's from. So it's like, it's just like, do you?
Funny enough, I actually found out yesterday. I think someone said when they were looking through the history in terms of like what he was. I think someone had found out that he was from, I think, France. I could be mistaken, but I'll look. No, It said. Sestero asserted that Wiseau revealed to him through fantastical, sad, and self-contradictory stories that as a young adult he moved to Strasbourg, France, where he adopted the name Pierre and worked as a restaurant dishwasher. So it's Greg Sestero in the book. So yeah, that's interesting. But then again, for all we know, he might be telling various stories. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, like, again, yeah. And so that's the thing. It's like with James Franco, and again, I don't even know if I can really criticize him too much, but I don't know. It's just like, it does feel a little bit more like someone trying to play Tommy Wiseau rather than being Tommy Wiseau. Like, ironically enough, I've seen Greg Sestero do like a Tommy Wiseau impression on Nostalgia Critic's review of Best Friends.
Yeah.
And I kind of, even though granted, he has known Tommy Wiseau more than anyone, that as far as we know. And so it's like, when he plays Tommy Wiseau, it kind of feels a little bit more right. It does feel like he's playing it with a lot more of that randomness, that kind of random spontaneity that no other person has. Whereas James Franco, like I said, it does feel like he's kind of he's playing the beats of a scene, which normally wouldn't be a problem. But you see what I'm saying? Am I coming across correct?
No. In fact, I was actually going to say as much as I love the opening scene of Franco as Tommy Wiseau, and even at times I think he's very good in the role, I noticed this time around on a rewatch that, because initially when I saw it in theaters, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, this guy should get nominated for an Oscar for this. Nowadays, I'm like, at least with this rewatch, I'm like, it's funny that I think Franco is pretty good in the film for what he's given and what he's doing, But weirdly enough, I actually found the writing itself to be more of an achievement rather than the performance by Franco's giving. Like, he is good. And I think the other problem that you run into with this kind of, character is that unlike other figures that we've had, like, Winston Churchill we had, which literally had, like, multiple versions of him. Well, but let's bring him up, for example. There's other actors that you could play for that role that have their different take on it, and in a way they capture a bit of a semblance, or at least capture a fraction of what Winston does, or at least who he used to be. With Wiseau, it's really hard to nail down who he is because we don't know too much about him, and even some other biopic performances that we've seen lately, like Tammy Faye, I mentioned Freddie Mercury. We know enough information that's already public knowledge for actors to find and do research on in a way that you could at least try to, like, on paper, you could see the actors trying to nail down the persona or the character that really does feel like that person. Even someone like Bradley Cooper and, in Maestro with Leonard Bernstein, like some critics, even myself, I thought, yeah, he kind of nailed down some of the mannerisms of Leonard Bernstein pretty well, but I could see why some people wouldn't really connect with that performance. But at least there's some public knowledge of that person that they're playing, so to speak. Whereas Tommy Wiseau, again, it's really hard to find much about him other than the book.
Yeah, the only thing he can really do is an impression, and that can only go so far, really.
Yeah, but I still think, like Franco, I still think he's good in the movie. If we can go through some of the other actors in the film, which is, mostly.
I have some of them written. I actually have some of them highlighted down. Actually,
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead with your notes if you don't mind.
Yeah, a couple of them. Let's talk. Let me talk about Dave Franco first.
Yes.
I think Dave Franco actually does a great job playing a guy that's trying to go along with Tommy's antics, and this is even something you kind of see with the real Greg Sestero these days. It's like even for example, again going back to the nostalgia critic, Greg Sestero was the one that kind of had Prince told Tommy, hey, lay off Doug, all right, like he's just reviewing your movie, and it's kind of like he's kind of like the one who kind of has to stop Tommy from doing stupid things even in real life. Yeah. And I feel like Dave Franco actually did a good job being that rock for him.
Yeah, and he's even written that way even on set too, when we have other actors in the film, like who is it? Seth Rogen is one. We have Paul Scheer, who plays like the director photographer for the Room, or at least who was the first DP on that film. And they're like, what the hell is going on with Tommy? Like, what, why is he mucking up his lines? Like, no, let me talk with him. Let me sort him out. I got this, with Greg. And Dave Franco, he does a good job too. I haven't really seen him in a lot of other films on the top of my head. I keep forgetting. Okay, so I have seen him in a couple of things. The remake of Fright Night, I saw him in the first Now You See Me, and then 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street, which he is pretty funny in both of those movies, I must say. Dave Franco, he's good in that role, and I think it also helps too that James Franco already has a relationship with Dave Franco as his older brother, so it kind of makes sense as to them, building their friendship for this one, because it's a lot more believable when you already know the person you've been living with for many years. So,
You
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
All right, another one that I thought was really, actually a very underrated performance in the movie, Seth Rogen. I like the idea of him being sort of like the comic foil to Tommy Wiseau. Because you have Dave Franco, who's like the rock for Tommy's craziness, and then you have again Seth Rogen, and he's it's sort of like how you would see in like a lot of like sketches or in cartoons, where it's like that foil, like that comic foil that's going up against this person. And the way Seth Rogen is just going up to Tommy, is like, that doesn't really make sense. What are you doing, dude? I thought it was really, really funny. Again, I go back to that teaser trailer where he's like, Tommy he goes, "I hit her," and he goes, "No, like, do you want to change the line?" Like,
Yeah.
Again, you just see like this guy's stress just keeps like going and going, but he's like he's the director, like I gotta do what he says, and then at some point he breaks when. Yeah, especially during a scene that is like, and we'll because I'm pretty sure you know what scene I'm talking about, where like things get way too insane.
Oh yeah,
I want
sex scene. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get to that scene here in a bit. But so I really loved Seth Rogen in the movie. What was your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he plays it's funny, yeah, because I'm not really the biggest Seth Rogen fan out there, but I did actually think he worked in the role in this role too, and I like it when he plays this more dramatic, like the more dramatic roles. He's very much like the straight man this time around compared to some of the other shtick he was in, like in This Is the End was one where he plays like a more comedic role, and I much prefer him when he's playing the more straight man, because he was also pretty good in The Fabelmans too, and that was something I was quite impressed with.
Oh, I love him in The Fabelmans. Oh, Steve Jobs, underrated in Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
oh
he's
my
pretty
God.
good in that too. I forgot about that too. Yeah. Any other actors you wanted to bring up note of?
Oh, this is the last one I want to bring up, because this guy was the funniest part of the movie. Zac Efron as Chris R.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Why don't people talk about this more? He's so funny. Like, his intensity.
Yes.
He is so chaotic. It is just like the way he's just.
Thank you, Christian.
Oh, thank you. I forgot. Like I forgot how funny he was. Where he's just like going insane with that gun, like, "Give me the fucking money!"
Yeah.
And he's just like, and like doing push-ups. It's like scaring the living shit out of Josh Hutcherson.
Well,
It's so funny.
And even Tommy Wiseau was like, "Whoa, he monster."
Yeah, if Tommy Wiseau's calling you crazy, you need to chill.
Yeah, it was great because even my brother and I, we found out about Zac Efron being in the movie, and we thought immediately, we're like, okay, he's either playing the robber or he's playing Danny.
Chris R.
Yeah, like Chris R or Danny, which is it? And we found out he was playing Chris R. We're like, perfect. That is amazing casting.
Man,
that was great.
Oh my! Again, the way his just intensity, just again, he just comes out of nowhere, and then doesn't really have a scene like that ever again. It's just like he just comes and goes. He's just, bro. Honestly, maybe one of Zac Efron's best performances, if I must say, because it's just so intense.
I haven't seen him real quick though. I haven't seen him in the Iron Claw, but I'm kind of curious to see how that performance is, because I remember some people that I've talked with were like, "Oh yeah, he's pretty good in the film," and I would like to see him for awards recognition, but I'll get around to that down the road. But no, he's pretty good in the movie for what limited screen time he has here. So
yeah. And I gotta say, another thing I kind of realized is that there's a lot of celebrity cameos in the movie. Like, like you could definitely tell this is like James Franco and Seth Rogen's buddies. And funny, it never actually felt distracting to me. It's like it just kind of felt funny. And like again, like some of these hell, even just the Room cast itself. I mean, aside from like James Franco and and Dave Franco and Zac Efron, but you also have Josh Hutcherson. You have Oscar nominee Jackie Weaver. It's like, how are they?
In it too.
Yeah, how are they getting like so many of these like big name stars in this movie about probably one of the worst films ever made? Like that's and even other people like Bryan Cranston and Judd Apatow, and even in the beginning you have J.J. Abrams of all people. It's just like, it's kind of insane the amount of people they actually got to be in this little A24 movie.
I know that Judd Apatow, the film that would eventually be bought out by US. But I know with Judd Apatow, he was responsible for making I think Seth Rogen and Franco's careers for what they were. I think Judd Apatow was involved with Freaks and Geeks. I could be wrong, but it's because of Apatow that they probably were like, hey, can you at least come in for a day or two and just film these scenes? And Cranston, I remember Cranston, he was hired for the role because of, I forgot about this. Franco had worked with Cranston on Why Him. And he's like, oh yeah, let's bring on Cranston to film it, for this cameo. And he was probably given like a daily SAG fee of like whatever the fee was for just, showing up on day for filming. Um, and yeah, but other than that, yeah, but yeah, no, that's yeah, and I forgot Sharon Stone's in it too as Greg Sestero's agent. She pops in for like a cameo. Yeah, Jack Weaver, I think we already mentioned, and
Yeah.
yeah, and Bob Odenkirk plays as like
Oh,
what Tommy Wiseau's method actor teacher.
and
So
ironically enough, Bob Odenkirk would go on to play like Tommy Wiseau's role in like a version of The Room that was being that I think was shown and made to benefit like cancer or something.
yeah.
And like, have you ever heard of that?
I did. Did they go through with it, or was
I
it
think
just
they
like a
did.
one-time thing?
I think they did film it. I think they did screen it, but I don't know when it's going to be released to the public or if it's going to be released to the public. I hope it is because I really want to see like fully like Bob Odenkirk try to make these lines sound good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, it's that's the other thing we should bring up about The Room is that I think what makes it stand out the most is the fact that every once in a while we get a filmmaker, whether good or bad, and they're given free reign to be like, what would it's almost like the a psychotherapist, what do you call it, not a psychotherapist, but like an analyzation of like what's in the mind of this patient that we have here, what are they thinking in their thoughts when they're left to themselves. And that's kind of the same way about these kind of infamous films that we get, where it's like what kind of movie would we get from George Lucas if he was given free reign to do the Phantom Menace or the prequel trilogy. What kind of movie would we get if Tommy Wiseau was allowed to do whatever he wanted with this. What even Coppola to a certain extent with Megalopolis,
Or M. Night Shyamalan with Lady in the Water.
yeah, exactly. Where it's like, I'm kind of curious to know what happens when we just say, here's a blank check, do whatever you want, and don't limit your imagination. Let it all come out and see what you got. And sometimes it works out pretty well with some of these films, but most times it doesn't. But if anything, it makes it a very fascinating case to be like, it's interesting, yeah, that we're nowadays with Hollywood, a lot of artists and filmmakers are restricted on their creativity and what's allowed and what isn't for their film. But there's other times where it's like, okay, every once in a while we get that creativity of like, oh yeah, here's what happens when you get to do whatever you want with all the devices you have in your hand. And I always find it fascinating whenever that kind of situation happens. And it's clear that this happened too with Tommy Wiseau. And speaking of Tommy Wiseau, we should bring up the sex scene, which is which is the moment in so obviously this is the moment in the film where Tommy Wiseau and the actress playing Lisa, the character Lisa. Oh God, what the hell was her name? I'm looking at the list now. So it's and so it's interesting. It's Juliet Danielle, who's in The Room, who plays The Room, and Ari Grainer plays Juliet in the Disaster Artist. So sorry for the confusion there, but and that's it's an interesting scene, and especially with how it's structured and how the dialogue is written, where like there's a lot of chaos going on with everyone, like especially with Tommy Wiseau having he has like he's literally showing everything but his penis because it's in like a sock or whatever. And then you have Lisa, who's the actress playing Lisa, who's just practically nude on and has covered over her, and he's complaining about what are these dimples here, let makeup, get rid of these ugly dimples. And even with like the DP coming in to step up to protect her, the actress, and so on and so forth, and even being like, oh yeah, I had this cameraman spying on all of you guys, and it's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, that's illegal. You can't do that unless you have like a contract with them, and he didn't sign any NDAs and be like, yes, you will be on camera and we will cover everything that goes on. Are you okay with this? And yeah, it's like a really horrific moment that unfortunately, even if it, because again, because I didn't get a chance to really dive deep into like the troubled production of The Room. I'm curious to know if anyone has. I would love to know if this scene had occurred or not. But even if it didn't, and this was a way of creative liberties of like we need to create a sense of like tension of like whether or not Greg and Tommy's friendship will actually stay together because of this incident in the film. But but even again, even if it was just created for the movie, I still think it's an interesting scene to have for the movie. Not just because of that, but also because this kind of thing does happen every so often. Like we hear all these troubled productions, especially with people who were accused of sexual misconduct, and it's where it's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like this should not have been allowed on set with any of this shit that goes on. And now we've had Hollywood standards that have changed, hopefully for the better. And yeah, it's a really good scene in the movie, not just because again because of what it's doing, but just because of the performances and the act and the writing itself. And it displays that spontaneity almost of what's going on and such. And I really have to credit Scott and Michael for writing a terrific script. Even again, having us care, like we never even get into the whole room aspect of it until about maybe at the end of the first act, because the first act of the whole time is just us exploring their friendship of Tommy and Greg, even them watching Rebel Without a Cause. There's that great scene where they go out to James Dean's memorial grave, and he's like, Tommy's like, one day this will be us, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to, but I don't want to die on the side of the road. No, we'd be famous and we'd be actors. And I'm like, okay, that was good. That was like really good delivery. Even with the whole like when Tommy brings up Greg, he's like, all right, get in the car and bring football. It's like why, it's just like why like again, something that audiences while watching the movie who haven't seen The Room wouldn't pick up on, but if you watch The Room, it's like it's kind of funny how they were able to tie that in without being so forceful with the references.
I want to go back. I want to go back to the sex scene, because
sure.
that, like, looking back on that, like, that's, I feel like a scene that's held up a lot better even today, like knowing like what's going on in Hollywood and stuff. Because like the movie, I was kind of shocked to remember that, like, oh yeah, this movie does not shy away from showing Tommy Wiseau is kind of an asshole. Like, not kind of, like a big asshole. Like, if that actually happened on set, Jesus Christ, like, this is like serious shit. And it's I gotta commend the film for, being that honest, because like a lot of the times they'll try to like sanitize stuff, like, oh, he wasn't like, like, this person wasn't that bad. But no, this movie does kind of show, like, no, Tommy is kind of a piece of shit in many ways, like, and it is very, like, it is very shocking and like kind of disturbing to watch, especially when you see like the DP, again, like you said, the DP trying to step in and protect her. It's like, and Tommy just making comments about her body, like, what's this mole? Ew. Yeah. It's like, dude, like, why would you say something like that? Like that, like it is like, it was kind of hard to watch, admittedly, during that scene, because I was like, ugh.
And I think go ahead, sorry.
And also, if we're not mistaken, like, this was kind of when the Me Too movement started to happen.
Yep.
And which ironically enough got James Franco in trouble. So yeah, seeing how this seeing how this is, looking back on this scene years later as the Me Too movement has progressed, and we've seen like how many shitty people are in Hollywood. It's like this aspect of the film I did feel like aged a lot better.
Yeah, and the irony in that it's directed and starring the main actor who was accused of sexual misconduct against 5 women, and it's like, I'm pretty sure once Rogan found out, he's like, yeah, I'm not working with this guy anymore. Yeah. And he never did. He never worked with him again, which good for him. But we don't really see much of Franco and anything, like, at least I can't think of on the top of my head. The only one actually was Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That was the only one I could think of where that was like the last like major role he was in. But even then, it's just more of like a short story for that. So yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I have to assume they must have like filmed that like before the stuff came out about James Franco, considering it came out the very next year. So poor was it Coen brothers? They didn't know what they had on them. Ugh.
Yeah. No, I hear ya. I'm looking through to see if there's any other notes, because like I said, we could be talking.
I still have some notes.
I'm looking through to see what else there was. Oh, the one thing I also wanted to point out was I thought it was funny when Tommy pulls up to Greg's apartment and he brings up the limo and he has all the posters like like taped onto each of the windows. And then it was great when he pulled up to the premiere and he's like, not enough people, go, and then the guy's like, well, that was weird. And, the DP is like, well, that was weird that he just, popped in and just left. And Rogen's character is like, at this point, it would be fucking weird if he didn't do something fucking weird. Like, I thought that was a pretty good line. And
yeah.
Like, okay, that was good. Yeah.
And I got, and this,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is probably the last major note I have, which is I actually do really love the movie's message, where it's like, Tommy Wiseau, he made The Room. It's pretty terrible, like really, really bad. But at the very least, people are going to remember it. Like people, like still to this day, people. Hell, honestly, I think people still talk about The Room more than they do The Disaster Artist. Yeah. And it didn't turn out the way he wanted, but he left a legacy nonetheless. And I feel like that's a very strong thing, like a very strong, thing to have, because I know there's when we look at like some actors dying and people like, oh, I remember this actor from this more populist film rather than this film that they got a lot more acclaim for, and people go, why are you remembering them for that? That's pretty stupid. But it's like, but that's how that person made an impact on them, and it's like, I don't really shame someone for like remember, like, let's say Chadwick Boseman, like oh man, I remember him for, people go, oh, I remember him for Black Panther. It's like, if regardless if someone remembers Chadwick Boseman for Black Panther or his Oscar-nominated performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I don't really think that like it should matter how you remember this person. It just matters that we remember him. And with Tommy Wiseau, I mean, he's still with us, but The Room is pretty terrible, but and probably one of the worst movies ever made, but that is going to be his legacy. And I don't really think there's any shame in that, in that being your legacy, because people still like, that's how you made an impact on people, and they went out and supported your work. And I feel like that's great. I think that's actually a great message for to have in a film.
Even another actor to bring up who's long gone from us, Alec Guinness, is one where he famously hated the fact that people bring up Star Wars. Like, oh God, why not bring up other films? I've been in like Bridge on the River Kwai. I won a fucking Oscar for that. I was in Lawrence of Arabia. I think he was in a couple of other like David Lean productions. But it's like, why not bring up these other like much better performances I was in? Why would you bring up Star Wars? Because Star Wars was one that, down the road, he's like, yeah, I don't know, that was a terrible script. But he did it because it was like, I like George Lucas as a filmmaker, and I think there's an interesting story here to tell. And that was really like the one popular movie that he was in that I knew as a kid, definitely, and even my brother always is, whenever he thinks of Alec Guinness, he always thinks of him in Star Wars, when there's clearly much better work out there that he's been in. But that's how it is sometimes.
I mean, and again, that's something, again, like I said, I just don't really relate with that kind of mindset where it's like, why are they remembering me for this? It's like, they're remembering you nonetheless. Like, it's better to be remembered, as long as it's something good, like not for bad, as long as it's something good, it's better to be remembered for something that made an impact on people's lives than to be forgotten completely. Yeah. And I might do some like silly stuff online and whatever, but for example, I don't know, like whatever like dumb like YouTube short I do where I just have like what goofy sound effects or whatever. Like, as long as people remember me, or and that's how that made an impact on them, I'm good with that. Because again, I just think overall it's better to be remembered than to be forgotten completely.
Yeah. And I think that's also part of the reason why they had to change the ending a bit, where,
Yeah.
as we mentioned before, it's like, initial reactions were like very critical of the film, but the way that they made it to where it's like during the premiere, as the film progressed, the audiences, laughed at it more. They were actually enjoying how bad it was. To be like, like even restaurants like, do it, like, putting the bullet into his mouth and shoot him, but it's like, yeah, and even Rogan, he's like, who talks like this, and even the Jackie Weaver character is like, that subplot never gets mentioned ever again, and even with the least actors, like, oh my god, it's still going.
Yeah.
But it's, and that's, yeah, so that's something I did admire about the film a lot, which is, I think, something that you should do when you're doing a making of movie, is you want to showcase the passion that the filmmakers had, regardless of how bad the film was. And you really want to connect with the characters. And if you don't really connect with the characters or even understand their passion of filmmaking, then it's kind of hard to really connect with the movie overall.
And sort of going to my point earlier, show why people revere, or maybe not revering in terms of the room, but show why people have a lot of passion for the room, like watching the room, and why, and even at the end of the movie, you see like people, videos of just random people that have actually seen the room. They're watching it. They're having a good time. They're passing footballs around in the lobby. The meeting Tommy Wiseau, showing why this person or this project, is. Again, I say revered with a little bit of an asterisk, but revered to an extent as to why we're doing this. Like, show why this made an impact on people. Yeah. I feel like that's also a very big important thing when it comes to films or projects like these, when they're talking about how they made something.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, other than that, I guess we could just go into our final thoughts, and then we'll talk about awards discussion.
Yeah.
We'll get into the other film that I requested you to watch, and oh boy, I'm really curious to hear your take on it. But anyway, so yeah, final thoughts. I like the movie overall. I think it's very good. It's entertaining enough. I think it provides, even if you're not aware of what The Room is, I still think it's a film that I think is interesting to experience. Just to be, again, to really showcase two friends who want to make a movie. And even if it does come out with terrible results for the film itself, it comes out, again, it's like, you're going to be known for, like, you did what you accomplished, in that you wanted to go to Hollywood and you want to become famous, and now you're famous. And that's something I think that, once again, I want to reiterate again, that Scott and Michael did a pretty good job with writing the script, because I really feel like that script is the reason why the film works remotely. Because if that script does not work as well as it does, I don't think it would have been nearly as revered, or had a lot of respect and admiration from people even who love The Room. Because, like I said, if nothing else, this is at least a stepping stone for general audiences to be like, I'm kind of curious. I want to dig into this rabbit hole of like what The Room is about, or maybe I want to read the book by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it for sure, and I think it's a good movie.
Yeah, I still think it did go from, like, it did drop a number for me, because I do feel like James Franco played it a little bit too much like a performance. But again, I feel like it is tough to say, considering how crazy of a character Tommy Wiseau is, and how difficult of a role that is to actually play. But I still think, in my opinion, The Disaster Artist is one of the best films of 2017. Like, it has amazing writing. It definitely connects to me on a level of, like, about legacy and the stress of, making something and finally putting it out there. I really love all of that. I love the dynamic between Greg, and Tommy. I love the side characters are when you're doing a comedy, you want to have great side characters, and especially when it comes to Seth Rogen and Zac Efron in the film, like a great supporting cast in a comedy can go a long way. It's like going back to films even like Liar Liar. It's like you remember the supporting cast just as much as you do the leads.
Yeah,
and I still think. Like I said, I think the Disaster Artist is still a great film. I'm looking at my list right now. I probably have it at number 9 in my best movies of 2017.
Right now, you're saying?
Yeah, right now. I just edited it just now.
Okay, perfect, nice. All right, yeah, just now, yeah. Yeah, no, all right, yeah, awesome, great. So yeah, we'll get into our typical wrap up conclusion questions. This is the part of the awards section where we ask each other what we thought in terms of like what we think was like was this worthy of the lone screenplay nod and would be nominated for anything else. So I'll just pass the mic to you, so to speak. Did you think that this was a worthy nomination for adapted screenplay, and would you have nominated the film for anything else outside of that?
Screenplay, absolutely. I mean, especially considering 2017 wasn't a great year for adapted screenplay, but even then, I mean, okay, granted, like, I would have some hot takes in terms of adapted screenplay, although I will say I haven't seen Molly's Game, so I can't really comment on that, but, obviously Logan I thought was an amazing screenplay. Call Me By Your Name I thought was very well written. I maybe would have even gone out of my way for, like, Blade Runner 2049 and maybe a bit of a hot take, The Last Jedi. I know film tourists go crucify me for that.
And so will I. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but I do like. I would nominate it for other things, but or at the very least one other thing. I'll get to that here in a bit, but I do think it was absolutely worthy of its adapted screenplay nomination. And again, if I have it in my top 10 for the best movies of 2017, I would nominate it for Best Picture. Because I just feel like it was one of the best films of the year. Even though I took it down a peg in terms of my rating, it's still good enough to be in my top 10. And I would have said James Franco, but again, as I said earlier, it's like, I'm not even sure I would, if the stuff never came out, or no, not even that, I should rephrase. If James Franco didn't do the things he was accused of doing, then I still don't think I would have nominated him for lead actor. Again, back then, when I first saw it, I would. I was thinking, oh yeah, I thought he was amazing. But looking back on it, it's like, maybe I wouldn't have nominated him anyway because of my problems that I previously said, and I don't know, maybe I would replace him with. Actually, well, no, I would definitely, because like my number one best acting, best lead actor performance of that year was James McAvoy for Split.
Yeah, that was the year. Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, I would. That would have actually been my pick to win, but. Still, like, I would, but even then, it's like, I'm still perfectly happy with Gary Oldman winning for Darkest Hour, even though I don't really like the film all that much. But at the end of the day, what?
No, go ahead, sorry.
But at the end of the day, I probably wouldn't nominate James Franco, even if he had never done any of that stuff. It's like, I think I probably would have found other performances I thought were better.
Same. I agree with you on the adapted screenplay nod. It's very worthy. If you haven't seen Molly's Game, I would definitely recommend you check it out. If nothing else, I'm curious to hear your take on Chastain's performance and Sorkin as a writer. We already did a full episode on it a while back. We did with I think Jack Mahanes. We talked about Molly's Game and about its chances it had and such, but I won't dive much more into that other than just check out that episode. And we also covered Logan as well, which also, weirdly enough, I think this is like one of the more recent years we've had where it's like multiple lone screenplay nominees in the same year, not just in one writing category, but also we had the Big Sick too. And thankfully this is probably going to be the last time we're going to close the door on this year. Although we may come back to it. I'll never tell. You'll see. We have some plans coming up in the future, but we may come back to these writing categories down the road. But Yeah,
Yeah,
but no, yeah, adapted screenplay, Franco, like sure, like if he would have been nominated, I wouldn't have been upset about it, but I probably wouldn't have nominated. The other actor I'm surprised you didn't bring up yet was Robert Pattinson in Good Time. I'm not sure if you've
I've
seen
not
that
seen
film yet.
Good Time.
Okay, you gotta watch that. Like if you enjoyed Uncut Gems, I think you'll enjoy Good Time.
Yeah, I gotta watch it at some point. But of the nominees that I've seen, I don't know. I'm trying to think of who I would have gone with. James McAvoy, Gary Oldman, Daniel Kaluuya, Daniel Day-Lewis, and honestly, maybe Hugh Jackman for Logan. Like
Yes.
that probably would have been my top 5 looking back on it. Although there is another actor that surprisingly took, if you want to segue into this,
Yep.
like that
Go ahead,
surprisingly
you do
took.
the segue.
Yeah, that when I saw this happen, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, and not necessarily in a bad way, because at the time I hadn't seen it. But Denzel Washington in Roman J. Ezreal Esquire, that like, okay, I will say, looking on Gold Derby, apparently no experts were predicting it. Which, okay, come on, like he got the Golden Globe and SAG. Like looking back, I'm surprised no one predicted him. But like that, on Oscar nomination morning, that was the big surprise for me. Like seeing him show up for that. And do you want me to like give you my take on the film before we?
Yeah, because I want to tell the audience right now, this is probably going to be one of the longer episodes we've had, just because this isn't going to be like a 2-minute thing. Like, no. We need to talk about this movie. So you go ahead with your thoughts, and then I'll get into mine.
All right. Okay, well, first, I like, unlike a lot of other people, I actually do like the title of the film, Roma J. Ezreal Esquire. It's like, all right, it kind of has a nice ring to it. Like, it's long, but I kind of like it. And I saw that it didn't have very good reviews, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of really dug Roma J. Ezreal Esquire. Like, quite a bit. Like, I do think there are some things, like, around the end, I don't know if we should spoil that film, but all I will say is, around the end of that, I feel like something happens, and it's, like, a little bit too drawn out for dramatic purposes. I'm like, alright, but I'm not gonna lie, like, with Roman J. Ezreal Esquire, unless it's, like, completely fabricated, like, not just, like, a little bit of details, like Bohemian Rhapsody, like, unless it's, like, massive, like, none of this happened, I thought it was a very interesting look at a sort of lawyer movie, and I legitimately didn't really expect any of that happening. And honestly, Denzel Washington, I probably would have put him in above James Franco, if I'm going to be honest. But you seem to have a different take on that.
Yeah, so I watched the movie yesterday, and when I asked you weeks ago when you were going to be on the channel, I said, you know what? Let's talk about this movie also. And as I was watching it in the middle of the movie, I thought to myself, oh my god, I owe Christian so many apologies, to be like, I'm so sorry I wasted 2 hours of your time with this movie, because my god, was I so bored by this. I did not like it. And I commented before on Nightcrawler how Dan Gilroy, it seemed like he really knew what he was doing with that movie as a director and as a storyteller. Like, he had a lot of passion towards that subject matter, and even was able to believably make me care about the characters, at least be more interested in how this character dives deeper and deeper into that hole of seediness, you know, with that Jake Gyllenhaal character. But with this one, I didn't really get a sense of a character, and I can't really blame Denzel for the performance he's giving, because it's kind of hard for me to really connect with the character, just because of how artificial, shallow, and bland and forgettable the script is presented for me. And even with the character itself, like, you know, the sluggish pace aside, I didn't really care much for the character, just because I couldn't really buy him, you know, to go on to this path that he goes on in the film. And usually a lot of great actors, like we already mentioned Day-Lewis and even Washington to a certain degree, whenever we see these great actors, you know, find those characters that are written on the page, even the more impossible ones like Day-Lewis or Joaquin Phoenix plays, they always look at the character, you know, like the greatest actors always look at the characters internally. They think about, you know, who they are, where they grew up in, who, you know, what happened, like, why do they have a scar on their forehead, you know, who gave them that, were they in a car wreck, did they break any bones, things like that. And then by the time you get to your exterior character, you immediately are like, all right, I know exactly what my character wore on this day and whether or not his shoes were tied. You know, little things like that. But with this performance, it almost seemed like Denzel did not know what to do with the character, so he did it the other way around, where he's going to focus on external factors, where he's going to get the glasses, he's got the afro hair, he's got the old Walkman stereo, he's got the baggy pants, the the bigger coats and things like that. And it was like it's such an impossible character to pull off, to make me like really buy into this role, and then for him to go on the arc that he goes on, and then and such. I just could not get into this character or the performance, and it's such a shame because I think he is such a good actor. Like you and I, we both have seen him in much better work, or at least in a lot of great films. He's been in like Malcolm X, Training Day, like Glory is another one, and this was like one of the few times that I'm like, I appreciate the effort, Denzel, but it's not your fault, because you really are trying to do something with this character, but it's so hard to come up with this character that I could buy into. And if I just cared about that character, I could be more forgiving of the movie. In fact, even more forgiving of its sluggish pace. And we should also point out that it was screened at the Toronto International Film Festival, and after the initial screening, they cut out 12 minutes of footage of the film to make it a bit tighter with its pacing. And there were things about it where they changed a bit of like Colin Farrell's character a bit. Like there's a change that he makes, or a decision he makes at the end of the film, that is now pushed to the beginning of the film, and things like that. And I just couldn't get into it. And it was such a shame, because like I said, it's like Dan Gilroy, it seemed like in my opinion, he took away the wrong elements of what works so well for Nightcrawler. And yeah, it was just a disappointment for me overall. But I'm glad you were able to get something out of it. At least one of us was able to.
I really liked it. Although I will say, I did just find out it's not based on a true story. I was like, wait, like I thought this was a biopic of this guy, because like you would think like a movie called Roman J. Israel Esquire. It's like, oh, okay, like this is probably like a biopic. He kind of looks like a biopic character or whatever. I didn't know this was completely fictional. I mean, it still doesn't really change much, because like, oh, I guess the movie kind of fooled me into thinking it was a true story. Yeah. But I really. I do, guys. I did really get a lot of. It's probably. I wouldn't. Again, it's not like gonna make my top 10 best movies of 2017. But I would give it a solid 8. I really enjoyed Roman J. Israel. It's just like, it's like, I don't know. I just kind of likes the. I don't know why. It's like I just kind of like that path that that was being told. It's like, all right, where's this going? It's kind of escalating a bit, but at the same, and also I was very gripped with Denzel Washington's performance. Like, and like it's not even. And the funny thing is, like Denzel's usually like really big in his movies. Like he's usually like a very commanding force, and seeing him kind of play this quieter role, this more nervous, timid role, like I thought was very unique for Denzel Washington, because he does play the much more, good God, he's literally in Gladiator 2. You can't get much grander of a performance than that. And so this was a very different side of Denzel Washington that I didn't think, that I didn't think he would, that I didn't think he could do. And I thought it was a very welcome surprise on my end.
I do wonder if that kind of reaction is what gave voters to be like, let's give Denzel the Oscar nod. And also too, I did hear, from a couple of sources that Denzel got the lone acting nomination, partly because of the fact that some of them had felt he should have won for Fences the year before, but lost to Manchester by the Sea, Casey Affleck's performance. So they just said, all right, let's try to give him like a nomination here. And we're kind of all indecisive of like what that 5th spot is going to be. Because Phantom Thread was growing strong, because of the late screeners it got. Call Me By Your Name and Get Out had like big surges ever since they premiered it, at Sundance. And then you have Gary Oldman with his whole, makeup transformation, and it was like just strong enough to get into picture and other categories. So that 5th spot was kind of up in the air of like, do we give it to Franco? Do we give it to, someone else that's already in contention for Oscar consideration? Or do we just give it to Denzel, who is like, a 2-time Academy Award winner? He recently got nominated for Fences and he almost won. So let's throw him this, this nomination. And also too, Screen Actors Guild. I don't know if you agree with me, Christian, but they always love it when you're giving a showy transformation.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
no, they do,
even if
and
it's
again,
a really bad movie or critically panned, I should say.
yeah, yeah, they'll go out for those movies. Like, and I will say, I was kind of shocked to find out that Daniel Day-Lewis didn't get nominated at SAG, but you said it was probably a screener issue.
It might have been a screener issue because I remember that movie came out like really late. It was like maybe December is when that came out, and it didn't even do any kind of film festival. Like no TIFF, no AFI, nothing. Yeah, it came out December 11th was when it came out, or at least like the world premiere was, and then it came out a limited release on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, yeah, I'm not, hell, I'm not gonna lie, that, like, 2017 was a damn great year for lead acting performances.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
even, like, the top 5 they got him for the Oscar, I'm like, hey, at least of the, obviously I've not seen Molly's Game, but of those movies that, got in, out of the actresses that got in for lead actress, I'm like, I probably would have nominated all of them, to be honest. Like, even Meryl Streep is like, she's damn good in that movie. So, So yeah, like again, like even but yeah, basically, like I said, when it comes to James Franco versus Denzel Washington, like even if the allegations didn't come out, or James Franco didn't do all that, I still would have probably put Denzel over James. Although even then, I would put James McAvoy and Hugh Jackman above both of them. That's an interesting question for you. Like, if the James Franco allegations, like, if James Franco didn't do all of that stuff, would you still have nominated him over Denzel?
Over Denzel? Yeah, just because I wasn't really like the other thing too you point out about Roman J. Israel Esquire is that if you're not on board with that performance that Denzel gives, you're not going to get into the movie. Like, you clearly were into the performance and you really liked what he was doing, in terms of showcasing his acting chops, and you liked that he was trying something new and it worked for you. But that's really kind of the biggest hurdle of the movie, is that if you're not on board, if you're on board with that performance, you'll be fine with the movie. But if you're not, then yeah, it's just kind of hard to really like connect with the movie, even on an emotional level, to that character, just because he's in the majority of the film, and you really, I just couldn't buy him in that role personally, just because of how, one note this script is, and it's kind of switching back and forth on the character. But yeah, I guess I would put Franco over Washington, although I'd have to rewatch more of the 2017 films, because I definitely would have nominated Robert Pattinson for A Good Time, because I thought he was really good in that movie.
What about James McAvoy?
McAvoy would be a good choice. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time, so I'd need to rewatch that. But
yeah, like for me with McAvoy, what I love about what he did with Split was that that was just a role that could have so easily gone wrong in so many, like, knowing M. Night Shyamalan, like, a performance like that could go so badly if it's not played perfectly well, especially with scenes where he has to play like a 5-year-old boy. It's like, you better make this work, or else it's or else it's gonna be stupid. And it's luckily played with the right amount of terror and intentional humor. Like, I thought that was like the performance that blew me away that year, personally.
Yeah, no, and it's, it happens every year, and even you could attest to this too, where it's like some of these films, they have a bit of a bias towards them in terms of like why they don't get recognition. Also, it's really tough for a film like that to get even like a lone acting nomination, especially when it has no. I think it premiered at AFI Fest as like a surprise film. I could be mistaken, but I know it premiered somewhere before it went theatrically, and I remember.
I think it did premiere like in 2016 somewhere, because I remember Chris Duckman's review came out long before the movie came out.
Yeah, and yeah, I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, it's kind of tough for a movie like that to get a lone acting nomination. That's part of the reason why it was such a surprise that Roman J. Israel Esquire got in, because it was a box office bomb. Critics didn't like it, and audiences were very so on it. And there's a couple of outliers of like people being like, oh yeah, no, I really liked it, I surprisingly enjoyed it, like Christian. And I do wonder if that kind of reaction was enough from the actors branch to be like, let's nominate Denzel for this this fifth spot. Obviously, there was no way he was going to win because it was like the lone nomination for the film. And nowadays, we're in an era of the Academy where if you're a lone acting nominee, chances are you're not going to win.
Good luck.
You know, and if you think you have a shot, ask Glenn Close. You know, where's her Oscar for The Wife?
Although it's the thing is for me with Olivia Colman, it's like she's amazing in the film. But I don't think she was the lead. I just don't think Olivia Colman was the lead and the favorite. Like, that's my issue. It's like she should have been supporting. But
that's a whole other story we could do.
Yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms we could open another time. Yeah, but as far as again, it's just a really interesting year for film. Great movie for films. Yeah, 2017 was fantastic. It's a great year. And I even love the screenplay winners that we got. Call Me by Your Name. I think it's great that James Ivory finally got his deserved Oscar win for adapting Call Me by Your Name, and it was great to see Jordan Peele finally win him, not finally, but he won the Oscar for original screenplay, and it was like the consolation prize. And I think I already told this story before, but I'll say it again since we're talking about lead actors. True story, and this will be the last thing we bring up unless there's anything else you want to bring up for this season overall.
Yeah, I want to briefly touch on adapted screenplay because I think honestly enough, I don't mind Call Me by Your Name winning, but I honestly think my pick would have been Logan. Like I thought it was just such a very it was such a unique take on the comic book genre, and writing these characters in this way, like in such a in a way that we've never really seen before. That would have actually been my pick to win. Honestly, I thought that was just an incredible achievement.
Yeah, it was a good film overall. I once again, I already have an episode on that. It's a good thing I already have these episodes out because then it's not like, oh yeah, let's give it like a brief summary of these. But the one quick story I'll bring up is I remembered I was at a friend's house. We were watching the Oscars, and when we got to the lead actor nominees and we went through all the clips, and we were watching Daniel Kaluuya, and it was my friend's sister asked, do you think Daniel Kaluuya has a shot at winning this year's Oscar? And I go, no, he seems more like, to me, like number 3 at best, on like his worst day, or on his best day, I should say. And I was like, if anything else between him and Chalamet, I think Chalamet might have a better shot at coming back and winning an Oscar before Kaluuya. And then years later, the reverse happened. And it's like, that was like the funniest thing ever to see that live. Be like, oh my God, Kaluuya might actually win for Judas and the Black Messiah. Meanwhile, Chalamet still doesn't have he hasn't been nominated since Call Me by Your Name. Although, who knows? He might get nominated again for A Complete Unknown.
I'm not gonna lie. I think maybe Daniel Day-Lewis may have had a better shot than some people think, especially considering how Phantom Thread, sort of like The Father, although not exactly like The Father, it just kind of had that boop, that moment where just kind of skyrocketed. Because again, no one, I mean, even if you did predict it for picture, you were not predicting it for director, absolutely not.
Oh yeah. Who was?
Yeah, so I think honestly. Hell, I might even say because of the fact that it rose to popularity in such a fast rate, and it was supposedly Daniel Day-Lewis's final performance. Maybe I would make the argument he was probably number 2 to win.
Yeah. I think he was. Yeah, he was like a potential runner-up because Chalamet wasn't gonna win because they don't really like giving anyone that young the Oscar.
And Daniel Kaluuya was pretty new to the scene as well, at least in terms of A-list stardom.
And they also I remember some voters had a hard time looking briefly into Get Out's, Oscar campaigning. I know some of them were turned off by how Get Out was being campaigned, even though it was doing something unique and different. They didn't like how they campaigned that film as a whole, or some of them didn't. And but yeah, Day-Lewis was probably like a distant second. Maybe. But I got to admit that director lineup though was like, oh my God, that was like chef's kiss, like a great lineup and probably the best we had until this past Oscars, I would argue.
I think even my director lineup would have been a bit different. I think. Yeah, I would have gone Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk, Guillermo del Toro for The Shape of Water, Jordan Peele for Get Out, or like I'm not even really sure if I'm ranking these necessarily. Although Christopher Nolan probably would have been my number one. But yeah, yeah, Nolan. What was it? Del Toro, Peele, Denis Villeneuve for Blade Runner 2049, and James Mangold for Logan. Probably that probably would have been my lineup.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with this lineup. Although Blade Runner would have been a pretty cool pick for director. Other than that, like I said, it's I like the adapted screenplay lineup overall. But I will say I'm not really the biggest fan of Mudbound. I remember I've already said this now 3 times, or at least maybe 4. But I was not the biggest fan of Mudbound. Didn't care for it. Still haven't seen it since it came out on Netflix. And
I remember, like, I actually did watch Mudbound a few months ago for a retrospective, and I remember liking Mudbound quite a bit. I was like, all right, yeah. Like, I don't think it really stuck out to me. You know, I'm trying to find where I put it. I gave it a 7 on Letterboxd. It was a little bit more slower paced. It could have been, but it could have been a little bit more. Like, I'm not saying it needed to be fast paced, but like could have been like it was kind of dragging in a few parts. Like, all right, maybe get to the point a bit quicker, please.
Yeah.
But overall, I liked it. I thought it was decent.
Bad. But other than that, it was kind of an easy adapted screenplay win for Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah, because like there's never, like, in the expanded Best Picture lineup, there's never been a film that won screenplay without a Best Picture nomination.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the last one you'd have to go back for adapted was all the way back to Gods and Monsters, and then for original you'd have to go all the way back to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So it's like, if you're winning, like Women Talking, I remember it, I was like, if this can get into picture, it's winning adapted. It's over.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how many people say, oh, well, All Quiet won the BAFTA. I don't care. All Quiet is not going to win the award if Women Talking is in there for picture. Because even I knew while watching the movie, I'm like, if Women Talking can get in for picture, it's got it. It's over.
I think what put me over the top for Women Talking to predict that, I think, was Writers Guild. Because like I was thinking maybe Top Gun was gonna have like a out of nowhere like kind of upset, but the fact that it didn't win Writers Guild, didn't win PGA, I'm like, okay. So I was thinking, all right, Women Talking is probably gonna win this, because I don't know how. I don't think the fact that All Quiet won 7 BAFTAs, I was like, I think the Oscars are not going to go that hard for it. Even though I personally wouldn't have minded, but even though I love Women Talking as well, I have no complaints whatsoever. But it's like, I was like, the fact that it won Writers Guild, I was like, all right, yeah, Women Talking is gonna win this.
Yeah. But other than that, we're a little bit going all over the place here. But anyways, so to wrap things up, I'm very, very grateful to have you on here, Christian, and I hope to have you back on the podcast. Once again, I think I've already said this before, because we're recording like literally not even a week since the last episode that I did, which was on Hiroshima no More. And I will once again remind people that when we get closer to December, I will announce we are doing something, a bit of a change with the podcast. So I might have you in on that, because there might be a film or two we might discuss, but I don't want to give away the game yet. So all I will say is that it's something that I think will change up the podcast, add a little bit of spice to it, so to speak, and I think it could be something fun for us to do. So
add a little spice.
Yeah. Speaking of dude, so we'll see what happens with the with that. But yeah, I'll keep you in the loop in that. So that might be something that maybe we could explore. Again, who knows? Maybe we might come back to this year. So we'll see. You know?
Who knows? I really enjoyed being on here. I want to do more collabs with people, and I feel like this is a really fun one. I really liked going back to see The Disaster Artist, to see how I felt about it all these years later. And even though you thought I was gonna even though you thought you were roping me into something like tedious with Roman J. Israel Esquire, I love how the exact opposite thing. I was like, oh, I actually quite like the movie a bit. But
because like I said, when I was watching the movie, I'm like, "There's no way Christian." I'm like, wait, because again, then again, I don't really know you too much. You know, this is our first time us doing a podcast together. But I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh God, I feel so bad. I owe him so many apologies. Like, I may need to give him a hug. But the fact that you were like, no, I really liked him. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah, like I said, kind of going back to what I was saying before, no one can really predict my taste in terms of the Oscars or movies in general. Because again, you know, I ended up I loved Barbie. I didn't like Poor Things. I love RRR. I didn't love Everything Ever All at Once. It's one of those. I'm one of those enigmas. I remember, like, I was even in the Oscar Expert Discord server, and when I showed them my top 10 of 2022, which included movies like Fabelmans, All Quiet, Elvis, Babylon, After Sun, and The Batman, and a bunch of other like crazy stuff, people are like, I don't know your taste in movies at all. Like, what are you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like this blob that just like likes or just either likes or dislikes things as I consume them. So I can't really describe my taste at all.
So what you're saying is, don't predict, like, if a film is about to win a bunch of Oscars, that don't predict the movie that Christian likes.
Well, no, because Oppenheimer was my favorite movie of the year last year. See, again, you don't know my taste. You don't know.
Okay. So it's all right. So we threw that book right out the window. Okay. But yeah, so like I said, thank you again for dedicating your time to be here on the show, Christian. Before we sign off, is there anything you'd like to plug in to where our listeners can follow you along after the show is over?
Well, I won't plug in this lamp. I'm just kidding. Okay, but like anyway, but yeah, ironically enough, I have like a little Oscar lamp right here. But yeah, the Hanacast YouTube channel, I have that. Like, that's a lot of fun. I really like. I'm doing videos there. I have memberships open. I'm doing a lot of really cool things when it comes to memberships. I think, you know, I got like including like a lot of brief Oscar updates and stuff like that. Wouldn't really do well for a video. I do Oscar predictions weekly because there's this model I found, like, not really a model I found, but it's like, oh, I found a way to spread out my videos where it's like week 1 of the month, Best Picture, week 2, Director and Screenplay, week 3, Acting, and week 4, the Below the Lines. I just posted the acting categories and SAG Ensemble earlier this week and on Monday, and next week is going to be the Below the Lines. And well, especially with some especially with one category, things have shaken up quite a bit. Score, but yeah. So. But yeah, I do that on the Hanacast channel, and again, like I'm hoping to, you know, collab again in the future, not just with you, but with like a lot of other Oscar pundits out there. I really admire what a lot of these people doing. Honestly, I mean, gonna let you on a little secret. Me and Ryan Castleman might be cooking something up later this year. So honestly, that's another person I want to shout out, Ryan Castleman. He honestly deserves more subs than he currently has, because good God, have you seen his videos? Ryan, he has this the way his videos are presented, Ryan Castleman, like his videos look like something from Wired. Like, how? Like, how is he doing all this? And how does he not have more subs than he currently has? I don't understand it. Yeah. But yeah. But again, I want, especially with you, again, I had a great time talking with you. Maybe I could bring you onto some Oscar predictions in the future. We'll have to see. But yeah.
Boy, yeah. I gotta say, I feel like this season it's gonna be like a very weird, and you're also talking with someone who correctly predicted the original score lineup from last year, 5 for 5.
5 for American Fiction, holy!
And Indiana Jones. I
both
of them at the last minute.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, like Indiana Jones. I like even when Brother Bro, like when I was doing the video with him, he was like, I don't know if people are gonna care because people don't like this movie. Like it's John. He's gotten in where even like because people are like, well, he didn't get nominated for anything for Indiana Jones, so why would he get nominated for the Oscar now? I'm like, did you see what happened with The Last Jedi? That had no precursor nominations, and he still got in. And so I stuck with that the entire year. Didn't take him out. And I reaped the rewards for that, even though I still at the end of the day predicted Spider-Verse, which, shame on me for assuming the Oscars would honor something good and not generic whatever John Williams did for Indiana Jones or bland jazz music I can't remember from American Fiction. Oops, that's another hot take.
I'll tell you my theory as to why I predicted American Fiction off camera.
Sorry, I keep digressing.
That's fine. So as for me, you could follow me and the show through Linktree under @Matthew995, where you could follow along on all my social media accounts such as Twitter and Letterboxd. On the same side, I provided a link where you could listen to more of the more episodes of the show. And if you're interested in me in the hot seat, let me know, and hopefully you can arrange that happening soon. Soon, as in probably next year. Because right now, unfortunately, I am booked up for the rest of the year.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. No, after you, I'm pretty much booked for the rest of the year. We will be running a couple more episodes. My plan is trying to get the last episode out by middle of December. And hopefully by then, I'll have officially announced what my big news is for the channel. So you'll hear more of that later. Yeah. So anyways, in the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.